Today's video is about why I went corporate after being really an entrepreneur for most of my youth. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Andy Lynn Show. I hope everybody's having a great day. I really felt it was important to record this video because I hear and see a lot of what I call entrepreneurial arrogance or snobbery against people who decided to go and take a job. And it's kind of disappointing in some sense. One, because I decided to take a job, but two, more importantly, is that as you scale your entrepreneurial efforts, you're going to need to hire people too. And so while, you are entrepreneurial, you represent about, 5% of the world, just roughly. There's no science behind that number. But the majority of the people in the world are actually going to be employees. So it's actually really important that people understand as entrepreneurs the role of employees and how they are actually going to help you build your business. So again, I'm making this video to show people that taking a job, being in corporate, while retaining an entrepreneurial spirit can actually be quite beneficial. So a little bit of background. I was always going in a different direction than the crowd. So in high school, I was a freelance software developer, and I coded from scratch what is called marketing automation these days. While all my other peers were taking more traditional high school jobs, I really felt like the thing that got me excited and really wanted to pursue and put in my all was to find something that could take advantage of my software development skills. So that's what I did. If you fast forward a little bit, moving to college, one of the things I decided to do was to take a job. And one of those jobs that I took was running the student body run computer shop. And so, as I was in there interacting with customers and really getting to understand what they were looking for, I quickly noticed that one of the problems we had was inventory didn't move at the same pace. And inventory often moved very, very slowly because people were always looking at, could I get this component cheaper versus the other? So if you thought about that store, right, like there was hardware, there was software, and then let's just call it accessories. And so one of the suggestions I made was to bundle these things together, give a slight discount, and try selling it to faculty and to students. And what I was able to do by doing that in just like 3 months was we were able to move inventory much faster while raising revenue. And on the basis that I was promoted. So that's just an example of, I think, a lot of the entrepreneurial bone where while everybody else was just being satisfied being a cashier and, quote, doing their job, I saw a problem and I looked for ways to do something about it creatively. And then, further on in my college career, Web 1.0 was just being rolled out in mass. And I decided to get together with a bunch of friends to launch HTML pages for mom and pop businesses so they'd have their first digital presence. And, again, while everybody else was partying on weekends and figuring out what they could do before their college life was over, I was really more interested in helping me and my friends make more money. So it's just a little bit of a background in terms of where I think there was signs of entrepreneurialism, even though I really just didn't know about it. The concept wasn't, in my head. The term certainly wasn't in my head. I was just simply looking at it from the standpoint of trying to do something different to solve problems and trying to figure out how to feel passionate about what I was doing. So you fast forward a little bit, I graduated from Cal, UC Berkeley in 1996, and that was right when the .com was taking off. So it seemed natural for me to go and become an entrepreneur, right? Well, for one, I didn't really grasp the concept, as I said, of what it meant to be an entrepreneur. It seemed like a lot of bad ideas out there, and it turns out I was right. The ones that survived the .com bubble were few and many. Many of them were few, and many of them just actually burned down. They're no longer even in existence. The second thing was, I wasn't actually, in the mindset of let me go start out my own business and pitch for venture capitalist funding. It just wasn't within my construct. And so if I did go work for a startup, I would have been an employee. It just didn't feel like that was the smart thing for me to do at the time. I know a lot of my friends made a lot of money being an employee of some of these startups, but it just wasn't something that was alluring and attractive to me. The second thing is my previous entrepreneurial efforts didn't seem to be risky. I was always sure they would lead to upside. And in the dot-com era, there were just so many bad ideas that weren't even really based on any real problems. It just didn't really feel like this was something that I could participate in and give it my all. And the ones that actually made it out of the dot-com bubble, I just wasn't particularly passionate about. It just wasn't the problem space I wanted to be in. So ultimately, when I dug in, I decided that joining a consulting firm was going to be the best answer for me. It allowed me variety, and it gave me exposure to a number of clients across different industries. And so, yes, technically, I wasn't working for corporate. The reality is, the reality is, I felt like I was going to be working a new job every 6 to 12 months and potentially getting a new role. So as I continued working in consulting, transitioning from Accenture to a smaller boutique company for 16 years, I did get caught up in what people commonly call as a corporate rat race for some period of time. So I was getting complacent and, was just working my job and not really thinking about how else I can add value and what problems I could solve. But as I continued to mature in the business world, and in combination with some of the personal events happening, I sort of reawoke what I now know and can term as my entrepreneurial tendencies, and turn that rat race into something much more interesting for the last 7 to 10 years. So here's, sort of a summary of what that phenomenon I've noticed and I've been really pursuing for the last 7 to 10 years. So number one is corporate is in desperate need of innovative thinkers and change agents. And that's really the role that I've embraced. And believe me, it comes with its challenges. In addition to the traditional entrepreneurial challenges of making sure your product and service is properly positioned and messaged to the market, you have the additional challenge of having to get buy-in from people who've been there for 5, 7, 10, 15 years or beyond, and get them to change and adopt what I was trying to push them towards. So that's the dual challenge you get working as a change agent within a corporate environment. They've got a lot of belief systems that lead to a lot of blind spots. And so stepping up to own that is a necessary move, and not everybody can do that. But I knew that I was the right type of person to do that and that I could deliver results. The second thing I noticed in the last 7 to 10 years is staying any place for 16 years is just a problem. I had to accept that at some point, staying somewhere that long is largely just due to complacency and comfort. And at the time, I rationalized it for all sorts of reasons, but in the end, it was a lesson learned that I got that I hope I can share with you. So when you stay in any single thing for that long, you really have to look at the reasons and say, is it just because I'm complacent and comfort, and am I stagnating, right? And for me, it was. I was stagnating across the board, whether it was from my income standpoint, from my personal growth, or professional growth standpoint. So setting firm goals and giving yourself a timeline of, say, 3 to 5 years to come in and do what you say you're going to do is extremely important. You have to do that so that you know that you're staying for the right reasons. And unless the employer can offer me something new and challenging, I'm ready and committed to move on so that I'm sure that while I'm with a particular employer or an organization, I'm maximizing my efforts and time frame. So it's really important that you set goals. It's really important that you set yourself a pretty tight time frame so that you don't stay just because it's comfortable, because it will just lead to stagnation. And then the third and final thing is, even with a busy schedule working in corporate, I work 14 to 15 hour days pretty regularly, but in general, I don't work any less than 10 to 12 hours a day. But you can and should have side hustle to continue exercising your entrepreneurial muscles. I've done over my career mortgage loans, affiliate marketing, eBay, and continue to do some of that to this day. And it's not really just to get the extra income. I mean, that helps. But honestly, my corporate job pays me pretty well. But really doing these entrepreneurial things just keeps the belly and the fire in the belly burning, right? And so that when you're going through your corporate job of being an innovator in there, being an intrapreneur, you get fresh ideas from your side hustles, and it also just builds that muscle memory to constantly challenge yourself on staying close to the market and figuring out what it is that you need to do to produce a better offering and service. So I now have a side hustle for coaching and mentoring on weekends and on evenings to make it kind of like a executive MBA program. And this is for professionals who are really starting to feel the burnout, who are feeling unfulfilled, who really don't know if in the right place or how do they take their career to the next level. I want to help those people. So I'm going to start a program around that. And I've actually written a book that's soon to be published. I'm also helping my wife launch her own business. So I continue to build these side hustles without really any intent of saying, I've got to give up my corporate job. So in the end, being corporate doesn't mean you have to be giving up your entrepreneurial spirits. In fact, I think you could actually do both, and you should do both. But what I do think the value of being in corporate does is it gives you exposure to enterprise scale problems and opportunities, strategies, and tactics that you just simply wouldn't get if your whole world and exposure to business is the little baby that you've incubated on your own entrepreneurial efforts. It teaches you also how to treat and manage employees. Look, at some point, you're going to go from solopreneur to entrepreneur, and you're going to have to hire people. And if you've never worked on the other side being an employee, it's difficult to be empathetic. And I think that's so important to make sure that employees and the employee mindset is well understood by entrepreneurs so that you can take care of them, you can acquire them, and you can retain them. I just believe that if you've worked in corporate as well as had some entrepreneurial experience, you just become a much more well-rounded business person versus just doing one or the other. So hopefully you found some value in this video. And if you have any questions, please comment below. And until next time, have a great day.